Hi, everybody. Looks like we've got we had about 60 people respond to this session, which is great. But I think we've got about 14 people in online at the moment. So we might just start the presentation, and other people can catch up as we go along. So thanks very much for a little bit of a lunch and learn online. It's great to see you all. Today we're going to be talking about transition to retirement, which is yeah, an interesting, very interesting kind of area that various organisations are at different levels. But certainly, a lot of the large organisations we're working with who have long-standing employees have a whole cohort of people that will be moving into retirement, certainly in the next 10 years. So everybody knows about the big the bubble, the baby boomers that are coming through. So the last of the baby boomers will turn 67 in 2029. So we've got a couple of years there, but I must say, from everything that's coming out right around the first world, whether it's US or Australia or New Zealand, one of the largest growing groups of people are people over 67 still in the workforce. So we're living longer, we're looking healthier. So we're going to look at this from an employer point of view, but also have a look at it from the employee point of view, because I know most of you are in the HR area. So it's important we look at it from your point of view and the impacts this bubble of people coming through will have on your business moving forward. Okay, so there's a couple of questions there that a lot of organisations we're talking to don't really know the answer to it. No, it's always interesting. When I was a manager in my 30s and 40s, and you've got the kids and you've got the mortgage and you've got everything, you kind of sit back and think to yourself a little bit, well, people in retirement, it must be great to go into retirement. So it's sort of, there's always that thing in the back of your head thinking, okay, that's a great thing to do. But as you can see, I'm getting a little bit older now. I'm pretty close to retirement myself. And I can tell it's actually a frightening thing. And I've got my act together, I hope. But certainly for a lot of people in the workforce, looking at their retirement, as it gets closer and closer, some scary questions start to come up for them. But for an organization, what we're really looking at is yeah, how many people do you have? How many employees do you have that are reaching retirement? And what critical knowledge in your organization could possibly be lost if those people move into retirement? And what's your succession planning looking like? What have we got set up for those people who do move into retirement? And what conversations are you already having about retirement? And what is the actual cost of doing nothing? So I know certainly as we get older, time seems to fly a little bit longer. So things we think about into the future, a year goes by, 2 years go, 3 years go by, it all happens fairly quickly. But most organizations can't answer those questions. And I guess the other part of it that is when we talk about organizations, who actually has a policy for moving into retirement? And a lot of organizations, they have a lot of onboarding policies and development policies, things like that. And I know some organizations are certainly looking towards, okay, well, what is it when someone retires? Because we're certainly hearing that some employees who are getting close to retirement are really sort of saying, well, I feel like I have to resign from the organization to retire. I feel like after 30 years, 40 years working here, even when we're working with people that have been in the same organization for up to 50 years, that they're actually walking away from their entire entity and trying to set up that policy for someone who's provided that kind of support and loyalty to the organization over a period of time is something I believe organizations should be thinking about. Certainly my view on it is that people should leave the organization with the same attention, dignity and focus as when they joined the organization, because for these days moving forward, your brand is also very important. What people say about your organization on Glassdoor and on social media and what have you is what people think about the organization. So it's important to be thinking about the bigger picture, especially when we start to into an area of scarce resources. And people will become a scarce resource, and we'll have a look at those figures in just a second. So the workforce is changing, And the intrinsic factors there, in 1970, 7.5 people were working for every person over 65. So that's quite a solid group of fully employed people, and the economy could afford to have people moving into retirement. And you've got to remember at that stage, in 1970, the average lifespan was probably around about 70, 75 years old anyway. So there wasn't a long time in retirement if you retired at 65. Today, that's 2026, we have 4 people working for every person in retirement. So that's nearly half. And then we jump to which 2050 seems a long way away, but it's only just over 20 years away. We have 2.7 people working for every person over 65. So you've got to remember that people over 100 is the largest growing cohort statistically in Australia at the moment. So we are living longer, which is why there's such a massive focus on people looking after their own retirement, because with this reducing number of people going actually into the workforce, we are also then looking at this large number of people who potentially are looking to rely on pensions. But the other interesting fact about this, I mean, and this is all very, very statistical, 2.7 by 2050, but it is only people over 65. So what businesses should be starting to look at the moment is, okay, we do have a cohort of people over 65 that they're still going to be fit at 75, much fitter than our parents or our parents' parents were at that period of time. I mean, I was working with a lady a little while ago who was her role was made redundant, and she was 84 years old. Now, admittedly, she looked very, very good for 84 years old, but she was quite angry that she had actually lost her job. So although we're talking about 2.7 people working for every person over 65, that does not say that people over 65 aren't working, but it does lean towards HR looking at how do we retain people 60, 65, 70, 75 in the workforce, because you are going to have to modify the way they go about working. So if you want to retain those people, there's a whole range of things you should be looking at to make it easier for those people to stay working in the workforce. So there are unplanned or potential impacts if transitions aren't planned. And there are obviously redundancy costs, and we'll have a look at that in a moment, because redundancy, letting people go in terms of redundancy or medically letting people go in the organisation is an expensive exercise, and quite an expensive exercise. But I guess the other part of it is knowledge loss in the organisation, and that's a critical for organisations, especially as the complexity moves forward. And there's always a couple of stories. I mean, one, there's a couple of large engineering companies who people have retired from the organisation without that opportunity to hand over the knowledge they have about the equipment. And when that equipment has failed, it's actually generated quite a significant loss in productivity and costs for the business moving forward, with an expectation that the handover didn't really need to occur. As we're moving forward into injury and compensation claims, we certainly can see a massive growth in mental health claims, psychosocial hazards, things like that. And the World Health Organization say that people over 65, there's already about a 20% increase in diagnosable mental health issues. Now, that is across the board, of course. But what it is actually saying is that people over 65 do start to move into mental decline, especially if they're not working to maintain that. And there are a few things that they can do to maintain that, and that includes physical exercise and certainly social interaction or what have you. And with that impact, there's also that productivity impact in the organisation. So there is going to be some physical decline. There is going to be some mental decline with people over 65. But as I said before, businesses may be looking to that group of people to start to actually fill those roles they're not able to fill as the population in the workforce starts to reduce just through to age, because we're not backfilling. There are a number of first world countries at the moment, Japan and Korea, for example, and China as well, where there is a significant decline in population. There's a significant reduction in the amount of children being born. And they are looking at a significant reduction in population over the next 20 to 30 years, which means that that basically is a reduction in workforce, and maybe a driver for the international immigration policies and what have you that a number of organisations, a number of countries, I should say, that are putting in place. So there are impacts and unplanned workforce transitions, and they will create significant but avoidable costs. Okay, these are some numbers I shared at the RE conference we presented at recently, but these are some of the real costs you may have considered. That planned exit. So someone puts their hand up and said, "I'm 67 or 70 years old, and I'd like to retire," and they will do that based on a number of factors. But generally, across the board, you will need to pay out obviously the holiday pay, long service leave, things like that. And these figures are based on a 65-year-old person with 20 years experience or working with the organisation on an earning of around about $80,000 a year. If you look at having to make that role redundant, you are falling into some significantly higher costs and more disruption. And so once again, for that person within that context, you're looking at about a $50,000 cost in redundancy. That's just one person who doesn't retire, that you're asking them to retire. But when we start to move into workers' compensation and people over 65, 70 are now having to be medically let go from the organisation through impacts which could be proven to be aligned to their work with the organisation, you start to fall into a workers' compensation area. Now, these figures start at around $150,000 plus, and I know they're significantly higher than that. Now, one of the people we were working with, he had worked with the organisation for a number of years, about 30 years. His best friend in his entire social context was the workplace. His best friend was his supervisor. He had a stroke one Friday evening. And was unable to continue work. That person had no idea of the social services, had no idea about pensions, no idea about anything that was going on in the world of him being moved into medically discharged from the organisation. The organisation did what it could to try and support that person. But it's really an example of it's not only a massive issue for the organisation in terms of costs, but all the statistics I'm reading, the information coming out is saying that being let go from an organisation in the latter years of your life in working has a massive negatively psychological impact on people. And some people are saying or some research is saying that can actually reduce someone's life by 10 years because of a whole range of issues. But really, that whole expectation that really, since you were 5 years old, everything was laid out for you, your kind of career, the opportunities, your interactions, social life, all that type of thing. Once you move into retirement, if it's unplanned, that suddenly ends, and now you're totally responsible for your own interactions and your own, social well-being and mental and health well-being. So there's some of the impacts on the other side. But there are costs of letting people go from the organisation, and planning it and having people choose to retire from the organisation. If you're looking at restructuring, I know a lot of restructures at the moment, organisations look at it and say, well, we'll just have a look at the natural attrition rate. If you had people who are in retirement that are now starting to put their hand up and saying, I feel comfortable moving retirement, once again, that will reduce or provide a significant cost saving for you, but also reduce the costs of even a planned restructure of the organisation. So the aging rules, now there is a risk model, and really high risk is your unplanned excess, which is loss of critical knowledge and workforce disruption. Medium risks are around skill gaps and succession falls and increased cost expenditure. Lower risk is that aging workforce, increasing retirement, and then the foundation. And building that, but the higher we climb up the pyramid, the greater the risk and the greater impact we have on productivity and profitability. And through the workforce laws and regulations and what have we do have that situation where HR now not in that situation to ask people to retire or ask people about their retirement intentions. I'm certainly finding in a lot of organizations that the managers tend to be younger than the people who are at that stage of retirement. So they're unable to really, or maybe they're not skilled enough to have those conversations with their workforce about what their retirement were. So we end up with this massive gap now where the organization doesn't really know what their retirement intentions of the workforce are, and the workforce are kind of, they're a little bit nervous about the situation as well. So we work with a medical facility, and it's quite a complex medical facility, where they really had no idea about what the retirement intentions of their crew were. And this is a very, very specialized area with a lot of internal knowledge. We went in and asked the workforce itself what their retirement intentions were, and it was significantly higher than the organization thought it would be, which really set them in a spin. Really, they had to reorganize, restructure, and develop the skills and knowledge and what have you to bring that and maintain that that level of service that was expected from that level of medical intervention. So not having that conversation and that gap between HR and the organization's understanding of people's intentions is a risk in itself. So how do you restart that conversation? So the studies we've done so far, which were kind of were interesting, and the 500 people that were part of the survey, 51% of people said they were going to leave their role in the next 3 years. These are people over 60, and 74% were looking at leaving their role in the next 5 years, 0 to 5 years. Now, those figures are quite significant, but I'm also kind of looking at those figures and thinking, all right, well, intention doesn't necessarily equal action. And as I said, as we get older, time kind of goes by. I have these intentions, but there's a whole lot of things that someone needs to think about before they take that final step. So sitting and thinking about the future retirement and thinking, yeah, it would be great to retire when I'm 65 or 67. But we're not actually considering the intricacies of what it takes to make that happen. So people are in their 60s are thinking about retirement, but they don't know how to make it happen, and time kind of passes by. The organization is not pushing it in any way. They need the resources to move through. So a year goes by, another year goes by, another year goes by, and I don't know whether those intentions will actually equal the actions. But it does set up an interesting dilemma for the organization, where as it sits at the moment, all these questions are completely out of our control, but they can be brought back in your control. They can be brought back by setting up the infrastructure, the research and what have you, that then provides you the answer to these. So you can start to solidify a little bit more of the intentions of that workforce moving forward without breaching any of the HR rules and regulations. And that's restarting that conversation. So we do have differing concerns really around the same issue. So the organisation is concerned about when people retire, what critical knowledge and capabilities are we going to lose? What's the selfie well-being and performance risk where they're increasing? Are younger managers having these difficult conversations? And do we have the right time, resources, and right strategy to move and to deal with the workforce as it moves through? So that's all around the challenge of retirement, but the employees have their own concerns because, as I said before, there is a massive push by government and superannuation companies to really say you don't have enough money to retire. So, I mean, everything I pick up in the paper, everything on the West Australian in their retirement pages and what have you, not too many people are talking about the actual concerns that will be facing employees as they retire. They're really pushing the agenda of retirement dollars. Now, as I say, the government have a vested interest in really pushing that forward because will be and potentially in the position where that pensions cannot continue forever. That what they would like as many people as possible to contribute to that. And given that Australia at the moment has $4.5 trillion in retirement, Then we start to look at superannuation companies, and they have a vested interest. I mean, they're taking $30 billion worth of fees. So it is a massive industry. So you can see there are really a massive push, and there's no wonder that people moving into retirement are now sitting back and saying, "Well, I could live to be 100." As I say, it's the biggest growing demographic in Australia at the moment. What would I live off? Do I need to do the numbers? And then with the superannuation companies are coming in and saying, "Okay, let's just look at your numbers." And there is a massive disconnect there as well, because we've worked with people who are purely looking at their superannuation and not looking at the broader picture and making decisions based on that, which are erroneous and almost like continuing work through areas where they're not really focusing on money as a balance of their asset pool. They're not looking at money as a enabler for a lifestyle. They're looking at money as a goal driven by superannuation. And the biggest issue is that most people don't understand superannuation, they don't understand Synchrony, and they don't understand their options, and don't understand their bigger financial picture. So it's just created this massive confusion. They're not ready to retire. They don't know how long they're going to move into retirement. They're not quite sure what they're going to do with their time. It's really always surprises me when I stand up in front of a group of 20 or 30 people who are over 60, 65 years old and ask them, how many of you have a hobby or a activity that you focus on regularly once a week, and only having half the group put their hand up? There is a lot of people in your workforce where their work is their identity and the center of their social interactions and the thing they are regularly doing on a weekly basis outside of anything else. And that need that people don't really take the time to think about all the benefits they get from coming into a job. Whether they love the job or don't love the job is almost irrelevant. When they come to work, it provides everything they need to keep their minds active and to keep their bodies active, whether it be problem solving, socializing, activities, discipline, structure. All these kind of things are what keep us active and keep us engaged. So the challenge is not retirement for most people. The challenge is uncertainty, and it's the same for the organisation. This challenge for organisations is uncertainty about this cohort of people moving through. So the question is, I mean, there's different things that organisations may be trying to achieve. And for a lot of organisations, it may be part of the wellness program and supporting the ageing workforce, and really sort of saying, okay, well, we need to support mentally and physically and emotionally the people that are working, because we may want this group of people to work through till they're 75. They have some resources and what have you. They're fit, they're healthy. So how do we become an employer of choice in that area? And how do we set up so when people are looking at organisations, that provides a positive view of the brand? It may be that you're trying to understand what your workforce retirement intentions may be, that you can do some succession planning, that you can set up doing mentoring programs or retaining knowledge moving forward. It may be that you are looking down the barrel of some significant workers' compensations issues, or you're looking at trying to reduce costs in that way. Certainly, we work with one organisation where I was quite shocked. It was a mining organisation, and it had an LTI of 20. I'm thinking to myself, wow, most mining companies, if the LTI is over about 1, they're really starting to push the panic button. But when you investigate it further, the bulk of those 20 LTIs were older people twisting ankles, jumping out of trucks, doing these kind of things that were not debilitating or caused by bad work practices. They were just caused by a breakdown in people's bodies as they got older. And it may be that you're looking at to proactively engage the older workforce and the older cohort in the workplace to maintain and I guess develop a broader range of engagement activities to enable them to continue working in a safe environment. So changing gears really is sort of sitting across that and saying, okay, we can meet a number of these goals depending on what your organisation is trying to achieve. So retirement is not all about the money, and that's what we're really saying. And this is really looking at it from an employee's point of view. As I say, everywhere you turn, whether it's superannuation companies or the media or the paper or the government or whatever, they're all saying you need more money for retirement. The latest laws are coming in now to make sure now employers need to be paying superannuation at the same time they pay their wages, because some organisations haven't been paying superannuation. The government is tightening up on that 100%, and rightly so that that they ensure that people are forced to save for their retirement. But all the research we're saying moving forward is that it's trying to replace that connection, purpose, and meaning of the workforce. That is the biggest challenge. As I said before, forced separation from work for the older workforce, psychologically one of the most damaging experiences they will face moving forward, and it can reduce a person's lifespan up to 10 years. So getting them ready, and we call our program Changing Gears because it's not called Stop. And I think one of the key things about where we're heading with this is it's changing gears for organisations to look at that transition to retirement for their older employees over a 5-year period or a 10-year period. They're looking at it and saying, okay, we can see these people moving through this this phase. How can we help them understand connection, purpose, challenge, structure, discipline, social interaction, all those type of things as they move into retirement. So when we let our people who have provided us with their services and their labour and their loyalty over a number of years, we're now actually setting them up so they can make good choices. And it is a bit of an interesting one, because with the laws and financial planners and superannuation and accountants and what have you, it's really separated out what each of those parties can tell you about things. I know that kind of sounds a bit odd, but your accountant can't talk about superannuation. Your superannuation can't talk about financial planning. Financial planning can't talk about what your accountant does. You know, we've ended up in a situation where a lot of people, if they're not absolutely focused on the financial side of it, are really confused about the money. And what it's meant is it's left the most important thing that they're going to face in terms of a challenge moving into retirement as a secondary thought. And the most important thing is maintaining connection, purpose, and challenge, so that when they move into retirement, that they have a hobby, that they have a social network they're interacting, because right around the world, loneliness is a bigger killer than smoking and alcohol at the moment. And I see in the paper going back about a month ago, dementia now is the #1 killer of Australians. It's just overtaken heart disease. So the question around, well, what stops dementia? Well, one of the things our brain spends most of its time doing is interacting. We are highly social, cultural, values-driven animals. So we are very, very attuned to the interactions we have with the people around us, and our brain is constantly working on that. Now, this is not the frontal cortex. This is what's going on in the background. So once I take someone out of that social interaction, what their brain was spending a lot of its time doing is now taken away. And dementia basically is accelerated by the reduction in social interaction, because basically the brain starts to rot. So that's why you see the growth in men's sheds and all these kind of interactions and what have you to try and get that going. But I mean, businesses have a place and employers have a place where they can support people move through and know what access they have to these facilities and what have you, and even help people transition into that retirement. So the retirement readiness gap. There's financial readiness, and people are very acutely aware of that, but there is the life readiness. Financial planning is important, but life planning is essential. So the Changing Gears program, it's for employers, it's for organisations, and it's for leaders. And Changing Gears, as I said before, we kind of call it Changing Gears because there's that period and that opportunity for employees, for people, for organizations to really say, okay, what does the next 2, 3, or 5 years look like? In fact, some of the superannuation and government benefits and what have you, and the rules and regulations around that are 5 years in the planning. And a lot of people who attend the or attend the Changing Gears program say, we wish we'd attended the program when we were in our 40s and 50s rather than in our 60s. So it is about building confidence in the employees as to moving into retirement, so they have a change of gears, that they're actually now planning that 2 to 5 year period into retirement, or at least if they're retiring in a shorter period of time, they're more aware of what the reality of retirement looks like. For organisations, about reducing risk, retaining knowledge and strengthening the workforce readiness, moving in there because they understand a little bit more about what the retirement intentions of they are. And for leaders, that provides them with a whole set of tools and starting those meaningful conversations so they have a better understanding of the intentions of the workforce. So who wants what? The organisation really wants capability, continuity, cost control, and culture. That's what we're trying to organise in there. For a leader in this space, they want clarity, guidance, support, and alignment for the workforce moving forward. But for the employees, what they're looking for is financial security, purpose, confidence, and options as they look at moving into that retirement period, whenever that might be. So a successful workforce transition happens when everyone's needs are understood and they're met moving forward. So we use a bit of a analytical framework, and as we're building this with Changing Gears, as we're having the conversations and interacting with people who to attend the program, we're able to gather quite a bit of knowledge, and we're going to start to increase that bit of knowledge, provide that back to HR. Certainly the basic understanding will be, well, what are the retirement intentions of your workforce moving forward? That then allows the organisation to look back and say, okay, what is our succession planning? What is our knowledge retention? What is our knowledge sharing? What mentoring programs? And it's always interesting because a lot of things that we ask people who are moving into retirement, how they would like the organisation to interact with them moving to retirement, closely aligns with gathering the data and the information and that transition that the organisation will get the best benefit from. So collecting data drives that outcome, provides you with insight, allows you to prepare that transition strategy moving forward, enhances your readiness for it. So basically, we can't manage what we can't measure. And understand a little bit more about the retirement intentions and what have you, is allowing us then to really set up a program that supports the organisation and supports the people moving into retirement. So really, our future workforce will be brought up. It's going to be interesting. I know in the US, one of the statistics that was coming out was that there was a large number of people in their 70s moving back into the workforce. And certainly a number of people I've spoken to who got all excited about retiring and retired at even earlier at 60, 62, 65, within a couple of years are moving back into the workforce. So whether they're moving back into a role that more suits, because there is that opportunity to make a choice of what you do rather than trying to climb the totem pole and all the rest of it, there's that option there. But organizations are going to be competing for resources moving forward. There's no doubt about that. The whole days, I mean, I remember organizations going back, and maybe some of those organizations exist now, where we never employ anybody over 40 years old. Well, if that's going to be your policy, then you're going to be competing heavily for that cohort of people because they're not coming through at the same rate as they were back when these policies were in place. So you will be either looking at retaining your current people moving close into the 60s and 70s, or you may even be in a situation where those people will be reapplying for roles in your organization. So being aware of their needs and the requirements moving forward and supporting them through that starts to become an important part of what organizations should be thinking about at the moment. So we are offering a number of options moving forward as part of the Changing Gear program, and these are certainly flexible to suit your organisation needs and requirement. At a base level, this is a little bit of a lunch and learn if you like, and we're certainly happy to deliver this to your wider team if you're needing to get your leadership team or management on board with whatever policies you're looking at around your older workforce. So happy to roll this program out. We do offer 1.5 hour presentations to your workforce. So if you're looking to get a group of people together, it's almost like a little bit of a lunch and learn. We have broken this into two 45-minute segments. But what it will do at a very, very high level, it will talk through the three key areas that people are mostly concerned about. And it is a broader view of superannuation because, as I say, the superannuation organisations they have a vested interest. It's not their. I'm not making any accusations or anything like that, but they have a vested interest in increasing the superannuation that you put in there. So they're looking at presenting that to their best interest, but also allowing people to understand what the Centrelink situation is for them and what Centrelink can mean to them moving forward. And then the big one is obviously purpose and meaning moving into retirement. So it's a 1.5 hour presentation where when I run the presentation, I will be running all three parts. Option three, what we're offering is really a half-day workshop where we actually get three experts in, and the three experts do not have a vested interest in one area or the other. They are there to provide really baseline information on superannuation, Centrelink entitlements, and once again, purpose and meaning. And we restrict that to 16 to 20 people, so there's lots of conversations and interactions. Our option four is the full Changing Gears workshop, where once again we run that half-day workshop, which is general information, but then each of the participants of that workshop, of which, as I say, 16 to 20, and they're welcome to bring along their spouses or partners to that, where each of the experts spends half an hour with each individual. So each individual will have 1.5 hour meetings with each of the three experts, and they will specifically delve into their current situation. And obviously option five is CLT and Changing Gears to come and provide some consulting and support through your business and actually have a look at the broader picture. So more than happy, conversations are free. If you're online, you'd like to reach out to us and start any of those conversations, more than happy to come out and have a conversation about it. We do have a couple of reports which we are very, very happy to share with you. One is a report on the feedback of everyone that's gone through the program, which gives some statistics and what have you around what they're asking for in terms of what they'd like the organisation to provide, retirement intentions and feedback on the workshop. The other side of it is basically a white paper talking about our view of transitioning into retirement, which includes a sample transition into transition retirement policies and procedures, which your organisation can take if you don't have, and expand that to meet the needs. And once again, more than happy to support you through that. Okay. So really, let's start the conversation. For a lot of HR, the conversation's been closed through rules and regulations. There's a lot of fear for employees, and when we talk about people moving into retirement, they're frightened to mention that to HR. It was interesting. Even some of the workshops we've run, people have specifically said, "I don't want my boss knowing I'm here. I don't want HR knowing I'm here," which it's like with a fear that they're going to be targeted for retirement before they're ready. So people have this fear that if they put their hand up to get involved in these kind of things, that the organisation may red flag them for early retirement. So it does show that there is a fear and a close down of those conversations, which, as I say, we can certainly start to reopen again. So it's about that opening the door, listening with purpose, exploring the options, planning together, and moving forward with confidence. And really, it is about the Changing Gears program has a dual purpose: support organisations, support people moving to retirement or through their retirement age or in older age, working for organisations, plus allowing people in organisations to retire with dignity. And Charlene, I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. I'm certainly happy to take any calls or anything like that.
Yes, it does. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, we're more than happy to chat offline.
So I certainly hope it. Yeah, I certainly hope it met your needs. As I say, it's just a quick 45-minute bit of an overview of the challenges we're facing, of the challenges that are facing the workforce and the employees and organisations. So I see a few clapping hands, which is excellent. And as I say, please reach out. A phone call is nothing. More than happy to have a conversation with you about your current challenges and what have you, and we can take it from there. So on that note, right on time. Thank you for your attention. Really appreciate it, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Bye-bye.